Okay.
So I'm here actually at the American Dietetics Association conference with Jim May, who's the founder of one of my favorite stevia companies, Sweet Leaf. And I think the first time I met you was at the Natural Products Expo, where we had a big talk about stevia and about Maté.
I think that's right.
Yep. Yeah, let me bring this back here a little bit. There we go. All right. So, first question, and I just heard you answer it to somebody. I didn't realize that. How many people around the world consume stevia on a daily basis?
According to Dr. Jan Goens in Belgium, who's one of the foremost stevia scientists, he says at least 135 million people ingest stevia every day.
Wow.
Worldwide.
And you're also saying something which is important, because now we have Truvia, which people think is stevia, but it's not stevia. And I thought that it was, a mix of stevia and erythritol, and you corrected me and said, no, it's barely any stevia at all.
That's correct. It's nearly all erythritol.
Which is why,
of course, it's GMO corn.
Right.
Sugar from corn extracted with alcohols.
And which is why you mentioned to that woman some people are having reactions to it, because they're having reactions to the erythritol or the GMO or something.
That's correct.
But not to the stevia.
Or the chemicals that are used to do the extraction.
Right. Now, stevia gets its sweetness from a bunch of steviosides and a bunch of rhodiocydes. Am I correct? Am I getting that right?
Yes. Years ago, all of the glycosides in the leaf were called steviosides.
Okay.
Now they've begun to find out there are various what are called stevia glycosides in the leaves. At the current time, JECFA, the Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives of the World Health Organization, has approved, I think it's 9 of the 11.
Okay.
But scientists are now saying there may be as many as 27 different glycosides in the leaves. Each have a different sweetening profile, anywhere from 50 times sweeter than sugar to 400 times sweeter than sugar, which is what rhodiocyde A is.
Okay. So they're all classified as glycosides.
Correct.
And they're subdividing them and giving them rhodiocyde or whatever they decide to call them.
That's
everything.
Correct.
Everything
now,
gets a name.
Yes, but what is too bad, in my opinion,
is
JECFA has decided to give it the term of steviol glycosides. And people are confused because steviol is not the same as stevia. Steviol is a metabolite of the other stevia glycosides. You cannot produce it in nature. The only way to get stevia is to use various chemicals to do the breakdown to the 3 metabolites, or they're saying it is occurring now in the colon of the human body. So to say you can ingest a certain number of steviol glycosides per kilo of body weight
is ridiculous.
It makes no sense, because you can't get steviol until you already ingest the stevia.
Right, you can't have ingested them, your body is making them.
That's correct. But they're all excreted. All the science today says
they're not building up anywhere.
You just excrete them.
And the good thing, of course, about all the parts of stevia that we like are that they are water soluble, and they don't have to use horrible chemical extracts to get them out of the leaf.
That's absolutely correct. It's all water soluble.
And do I remember correct that you were either instrumental or part of what brought stevia into this country?
Yes, I was the first person ever to bring stevia to the United States and begin to market it. And that was in 1982, so nearly 30 years ago.
Because I know I've spoken to, let me remember his name, is it Oscar, the head of Stevia?
Oscar Rhodes.
Yeah, very nice man and his wife.
Very good friend of mine, delightful man. We have deep respect for each other.
Yeah, well, the two of you have done a lot for getting stevia out to the public. And of course now we've got, Truvia and everybody else getting onto the bandwagon. And I'm glad you did that work you were telling me about to not allow them to get grass on their product, generally recognized as safe, and exclude most of the rest of the stevia.
Which is what they wanted to do, that only their particular brand would be allowed to be marketed as a sweetener. And to prevent that, I hired 2 independent groups of scientists to do all the research. It took nearly a year. But they determined that sweet leaf stevia was grass, generally recognized as safe. Therefore, sweet leaf was the first stevia in America to be grass.
Fabulous. What I always tell my students and my patients when somebody says, well, but it has an aftertaste, And I go, that's the wrong word as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, your sweet receptors fire faster and you taste the sweet, and then you start to taste the herbal flavor. That's the herbal flavor, it's not an aftertaste. And what I want them to understand, I actually ask for a show of hands. I say, how many people here have ever smoked any kind of tobacco, cigarettes, cigars, pipe, whatever, or have ever drunk any kind of alcohol? Just raise your hand. And most of the students put their hands up. There's mostly adults in my classes. And I say, now, do you remember the very first time you tasted the alcoholic drink or took a puff on that cigarette or cigar? It was just the best flavor you had ever had in your whole life, and you couldn't wait. Everybody breaks out laughing because they remember how horrible it was. And I said, so here you've gotten used to something that you know is bad for you. I just want you to get used to something that's much better for you than what you were otherwise using to sweeten your products.
Absolutely. Now, I've never tasted those things you said,
right,
but I've seen a lot of my friends who have in their first experience, and they have quite an experience with it. The reality is, anything that is too sweet, the taste buds will react with bitter, because you cannot take anything that's incredibly sweet. For instance, our stevia glycosides, when we extract them from the leaf, and we do it with water, it's 300 times sweeter than sugar. Now, if you taste that in that format,
it's bitter.
It's going to taste bitter. But when you put it into something and dilute it appropriately, it's just sweet and delicious. And we have no aftertaste because we never use chemicals.
And that's a good point, because I tell people, if you don't want any bitter, bring the sweet level up slowly to see how much you need, and don't go too far. And I like people to know that sour totally masks that effect.
Yes.
So if you put it in something sour like yogurt, or as you've done here, lemonade or limeade, most people go, oh, that wasn't sugar? Because you've masked the difference.
Exactly right. In fact, what we recommend to people is to buy plain yogurt without all the sugar.
That's what I want.
And use one of our liquid stevias, either orange or English toffee or lemon, or
I like the English toffee.
Any flavor,
right,
and add that to your plain yogurt, and you give it any sweetness you want, any flavor you want, and there's no calories, no carbs, no glycemic index.
And I tell people, pick up seltzer water and make the soda of your choice with any of the various different flavors.
Exactly. It makes delicious imitation soda
soda pop, right.
And it's good for you. There's nothing in it harmful.
Absolutely. Now, when we had a discussion at the Natural Products Expo a bunch of years ago, and because you sell Maté,
yes,
I asked you a question because I had read in a bunch of my herbal books that Maté, depending on which book I read, had between 2.5 and 3.5 times the amount of caffeine in coffee. And so when a patient would say, oh, I finally found something that I like as much as coffee, it's this stuff called Maté or yerba mate, and I would say, well, of course you like it as much. It's got more caffeine than the coffee. And they'd go, oh, and of course they wouldn't drink it because I told them not to. And you straightened me out on that, and you said, no, it's not caffeine. So let's go over a little bit of that.
Well, and that's kind of an interesting story. When I first was introduced to yerba mate was 1982. The reason I wanted to drink it very strongly is because I found that very strong yerba mate with stevia leaf in it absolutely eliminated the allergies, hay fever, that I had suffered for 35 years.
I remember you told me that, yeah.
And yet I do not use caffeine in anything. I don't drink coffee, I just don't use caffeine. So I was deeply concerned because I read those articles that said it was high in caffeine. Other articles said it was low in caffeine. Other articles said it had 0 caffeine. So I went to meet with the director in Paraguay of what's comparable to our FDA.
Okay.
And I asked him that question, is this caffeine? His answer was, well, Mr. May, we used to think it was. But with more modern science, we understand now that even though the chemical constituency is similar to caffeine, and if you only look at chemicals, you're going to say, oh, this is caffeine. But the reality is the molecular structure is different. It has a different twist and binding to it than caffeine does in other beverages. Mm-hmm. And he said, so we have changed the name to Maté.
Maté.
Now,
we always name things after the plant, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is that people get energy from it, but it's nourishing the adrenals rather than giving you this false stimulation. No matter how
So you would call it adrenal support rather than pushing the adrenals out of whack.
Exactly. And you never have a caffeine withdrawal syndrome with yerba mate.
Which automatically
Just
shows
doesn't
us it can't be the same.
That's correct. And also,
No headaches.
What's fascinating is they've now found that the leaf itself, and by the way, a yerba mate leaf has 250 different nutrients. It's extraordinarily nutritious.
Wow.
One of them is caffeic acid, which is what is used to decaffeinate coffee. So the leaf itself has everything in it just to make it an absolutely health-generating beverage. And with my product, of course, it's Wisdom of the Ancients.
Right.
Yerba Mate Royale. And
Right.
the Royale means I have stevia.
That's the one with the
leaf
stevia in it. Right,
Yes.
exactly. And I know I carry your instant, and I carry the actual tea for people that want to perk it. Is there an appreciable difference with stevia? I know there's huge difference in different companies. Is there an appreciable difference between the mate that you carry and some of the other companies? And if so, what might it be?
Well, there is. And the difference is how it's cured.
Okay.
The leaves have to be dried and cured. I happen to prefer the way they do it in Paraguay. Every country, every culture, they do it a little bit differently. In Paraguay, they harvest it, dry it immediately. Then it's put in this drying house, really, and there's heat underneath it, so you have to maintain a certain temperature.
Right.
And of course, then it's stripped away from the twigs and so forth, ground, and then it's cured in an all-cedar building for 1 to 2 years. And it's
1 to 2 years?
1 to 2 years. It's
Whoa.
just in the floor, wall, ceiling, everything is cedar.
Have they given you a reason other than tradition that they do that?
Well, both tradition, but also it develops the flavor.
Okay.
And you have
Like
this
aging liquors and barrels and stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
the interaction of the various nutrients.
Sure. Maybe it ferments and makes them more available or something.
And
Yeah.
perhaps so, but
Okay.
it does give it a very nice flavor. In Brazil, they roast it, and I think that ruins the flavor and many of the nutrients.
Okay.
But I like the Paraguay, and so that's what I market, and most people really do like it better. But again, I drink it like the natives taught me to do it, through
Right.
a bombilla,
Right.
and very strong, because while it's eliminating all these allergies I used to suffer for, the side effects are only increased mental alertness and physical energy and muscle strength. And the natives say that it improves your longevity.
And I know you said there were lots of very, elderly people climbing up and down the mountains
That's
doing things that have been
exactly right.
drinking this every day of their life.
Exactly right. Well, it's like, now I've been drinking it every day
Right.
for almost 30 years.
Okay. How much do you drink a day?
At least, well, I start out and make 3.5 cup mug,
Right.
big mug, and I drink that. Then I refill it with water, let it set a while longer.
In the
and
same
then drink
mate
that.
and drink it
Same
again.
mate.
And you said
So
that you use approximately a tablespoon per 8-ounce cup.
Approximately a
Approximately.
heaping tablespoon
Per 8 ounces, yeah.
cup. Not precise, but
Now, if I decide to eat something or drink something that I shouldn't, and I'm at a Vietnamese restaurant, I might have a Vietnamese filtered iced coffee. Of course, now I'm admitting this to my students and my patients, which is very, very dense, concentrated coffee on sweetened condensed milk. Two things that I shouldn't have. And I probably do it maybe once every 2 years. But if I have 2 of those, that's probably equal in caffeine to, 6 cups of coffee. I won't be the least bit sleepy that night. I will not be able to go to sleep. If I do go to sleep, I'll wake up 3 times, thinking it's time to wake up. The mate doesn't really do that.
no, depending on how strong you drink it. Now,
Right.
the way I drink it, very strong, I
Right.
would not do that at night before I was going to bed.
Okay.
Maybe
How long
4
before?
hours.
4 hours. Good. Okay. That's a good reference.
Now, interestingly, I do a lot of world travel.
Okay.
I use my yerba mate to overcome any kind of jet lag. I never have it. Never.
Wow.
I can drink it before I leave. When I get there, if I need to be up longer
If you need to be
hours,
up, right.
I drink some and then go to bed at the appropriate time. I get up. I never have jet lag or any problem.
Fabulous. I love
Latte
it.
is incredibly good for the human body. But what I was going to tell you, yesterday a lady came up here and she was talking to me about mate and stevia, and she says, well, now, you understand, I'm a lot older than you are. So, and she went ahead with that. I said, well,
How old are you?
I said, ma'am, how old are you? And she says, well, I'm 60. I'm older than you.
Oh, she's not, but I know that.
I'm 75. so the yerba mate and the stevia has been very good for me.
Yes, they're beautiful products, and we need more people in each of the good industries to not only know enough and promote it, but as you may or may not know, most of the, let's say, owners of different companies, if in order to help the industry or their company, they would have had to spend thousands of dollars to have researchers do things like that you did with the grass. They never would have spent the money.
That's right.
You know, it's nice to have those people that actually put some of their profits into helping their business and the rest of us all out there.
That's
So
right.
we thank you for that. And let's take a quick look at the booth here.
We also have it in a liquid. Yes, it's a liquid jumbo with different flavors. So now you can see any food or beverage, oatmeal, coffee, tea, water, yogurt. We have a chocolate raspberry. You're more than welcome to try a sample.